Hello, thank you for taking time to join us for this AIReady Math overview today. I'm assuming that most of you listening are considering AIReady as a solution for your school or your district as part of the state-funded math intervention program that's being administered through the STEM Action Center. AIReady and Curriculum Associates are proud to be entering our third year of partnership with the STEM Action Center and the Utah State Office of Education, and we hope you'll enjoy what we present to you today and the options that we provide for both teachers and students. To kick things off, I'm going to jump over and show you a quick 2-minute segment of one of our lessons so that you get a feel right off the bat what your students will experience with AIReady. And then we're going to come back, talk about the program at a high level, and then I want to show you the many resources and supports that we provide teachers to really help you drive instruction in your classroom and to provide even further differentiation. So let's take a look. I'm going to jump over here real quickly. All right, here we go. I'm going to go into one of our lessons. All right, let's start.
All right, let's hit the slopes.
Hold on, big guy. Some of these slopes look steep. I have a feeling it's all downhill from here.
Actually, Olive, we've got to go up on the ski hill lifts before we start going downhill.
It was just an expression, but look at that straight section of the ski lift. Even that looks steep.
This should help you feel more comfortable. I took a picture of the lift and put it on a coordinate grid so that we can model the slope of the lift.
Okay, everybody freeze. Are we talking about ski slopes or the slopes of lines?
Both, man. We can model the steepness of different ski slopes with lines having different slopes.
That's so nice, Gio. Understanding the math actually might help me feel more comfortable.
Great. We can find the slope of this line using any 2 points of the line. So, take a look at the chair hanging from point 4,2 and the one hanging from point 6,3. The difference between the y-coordinates is our rise. The difference between the x-coordinates is our run. The rise and the run and that line segment form a triangle. And we can use the triangle to find the slope of this section of the lift.
Rise, 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 overrun. Use the triangle to find the slope of the line.
Remember, the rise is the change in y values and the run is the change in x values. Try again. You know it, the rise is the length of the vertical leg of the triangle, which is the change in y values. The difference is 3 minus 2, so the rise is 1. The run is the length of the horizontal leg of the triangle, which is the change in the x values. The difference is 6 minus 4, so the run is 2. The slope of the line is 1/2. See, Olive? The ski lift can be modeled by a linear function with a slope of only 1/2. That's not that steep.
No?
So, I hope you were able to see some of the key pieces of the AIReady instruction for your students. First of all, we've got a pretty hip, engaging group of kids who lead you through these lessons. All of our lessons are tied to real-world problems or examples, and I can absolutely understand Olive's concern about this. I remember when I came out to college, my roommates took me up to the ski lift the first day, and being from the East Coast, I kept thinking the entire way up the lift, are we ever going to get off? This is a huge mountain. So I can understand her hesitation. But as your students move into the AIReady lesson, you see that we introduce the concept from the beginning. We've introduced this concept of slope. And as this lesson goes on and progresses, we're going to move from introducing what is slope, what does it look like, how can it be applied. We're going to introduce the formulas, we're going to explain the vocabulary, and we're going to continue to provide opportunities for your students to practice, and that practice is integrated into the lesson. As you saw, the first time I entered my answer, I got it incorrect. They provided some feedback for me. They provided some of the formulas. They provided some highlighting to show me on this grid what was rise, what was run. And that's what AIReady does. It provides that explicit instruction with built-in practice to really help your students learn and learn to apply the concepts. So let's go back and talk about AIReady a little bit more, just in kind of a high-level view. So what is AIReady? Yes, we're talking specifically today about the mathematics program, but AIReady is a program. We provide instruction in math and reading. So we have a diagnostic assessment that goes grades K through 12, and then we provide differentiated online instruction and teacher resources up through the end of 8th grade. You're here to find out about AIReady because you're trying to consider what you're going to use for your district. Why should you be considering AIReady? Let me tell you a few of the real key things that separate us from some of the other programs that are available for you to select. Number one, and perhaps one of the most important, is the fact that AIReady is a newer program and we were built from scratch for the Common Core. We haven't been around for 8 or 10 years. We didn't have content that needed to go back and be massaged or recorrelated. Everything about the program was built specifically to address the rigors and complexity of the new Common Core, how these skills need to be taught, the fact that some skills have jumped from 5th grade down to 3rd grade, the fact that we're asking our students to do a lot more, a lot harder, to think more deeply. Those are important concepts that you can address by manipulating correlations, and that's a key differentiator for AIReady. We also have loaded the Utah Core Standards, so when teachers access the reports, everything is going to be provided to them in terms of the Utah Core Standards. AIReady is a web-based program. It's 100% online, and that's important because there's no proprietary software or hardware that you need to purchase or maintain. Everything is done automatically by us. Any kinds of updates that we push out, when we add new content, when we have new reports, make fixes, all of that gets pushed out to you automatically, free of charge, and tech support is included with our program. Also included with our program is our support in helping you with your roster uploads and your data uploads. So we work with your tech department. We can help integrate with your SIS. We can automate those to happen nightly. However you want that to happen that makes your life easier, we help you do that. The other piece, which is I think probably the most important, and it's the thing that we hear most often from educators, is that the resources we provide for teachers, the teacher support that's built in to this program, is just absolutely key. Everyone has online instruction, but there's no other program available that has the same level and the same detail of support that we provide. We don't want AIReady to be an electronic babysitter. We don't want it to be just a program that's in your lab where kids go and they practice a few times a week and we call it good. That's not what we're trying to be. Yes, our instruction's available for your students to work on individually, to work on from home. Yes, it will work if they do that, but there's so much more that we provide to help teachers really connect that instruction that's happening in the lab to what's being taught in the classroom. And that blended dual approach is really what drives the success of AIReady. It's also a program that's designed to help all of your students. So it wasn't built just for ELL students, or it wasn't built just for students who need intervention. Because of the adaptive nature of our assessment, we can identify what your students need, whether they're 2 or 3 grade levels behind, or if they're 2 or 3 grade levels ahead. We'll know that, we'll tell you that, and we'll give you support and give those students supports for those next steps that they are ready to take. And then finally, we know that AIReady is correlated, predictive, and effective. We have national third-party research that tells us all of these things, and we've also done some of those same studies here locally in Utah to make sure that we're providing you with a relative and effective program for students here in Utah. So let's look at that. When we look at this national study that was done with AIReady and the Smarter Balance Assessment, in a large national sample, our correlations in math were 0.86. If you're not a statistician, that's super high. In fact, anything greater than 0.70 is considered to be very high. So our correlations at 0.86, kind of off the charts. We're really proud of that. We looked more closely at that here locally, right? So how does AIReady compare to SAGE? We didn't have the same sample, but when we looked at this, and here's some scatter plots that I threw in from 3rd through 6th grade, but when we did this for our students here in Utah, our overall correlation to the SAGE assessment was 0.85 in mathematics. So again, super high correlation. And what that means for our educators here in Utah is that when AIReady comes back and says, your 5th grader is performing at a 3rd grade level and he's missing these skills, X, Y, Z, you can feel very confident that that's what you're going to see when that student takes the SAGE test at the end of the year. The great thing is that you don't have to wait to the end of the year to find out that that student is 2 or 3 grade levels behind. You're going to know that 2 or 3 months into the school year, and now you have time to make preparations and provide different supports to help change that outcome at the end of the year. And that's a key differentiator in AIReady. We also know that AIReady is effective. So again, in national third-party research, when we looked at students who use AIReady for 45 minutes per week and those students who didn't use AIReady for at least 45 minutes per week, we saw drastic differences in the amount of growth that those students were achieving. In math, students who hit that fidelity mark scored 65% higher than students who did not. Okay, so as we're talking about this, one of the things for this program through the STEM Action Center is, as educators, you're going to be asked to commit to hitting the fidelity requirements that the vendors provide. We have provided the same fidelity requirement of 45 minutes that we provide to educators in California, New York, Texas, North Carolina, wherever. We haven't changed these to make our program easier to use. And the reason we haven't done that is because our research shows us that 45 minutes is the amount of time students need to use on this program. So backed by research, we're asking you to try and get your students on the program for at least 45 minutes a week. That can be in the lab. That can also be from home. It can be in 20-minute chunks. It can be in 15-minute chunks. But they need to get the time on the computer. And we know if they do, they'll grow more. That's our national study. But the STEM Action Center has also done their report. This is from the first year of implementation. And when they looked at, again, the fidelity users, AIReady was shown to have the highest impact on achievement of any program that was being used across the state after the first year. And we were shown to have the highest impact on achievement by a significant margin. So that was from the first year. Well, we decided to kind of go back and look at it a little more closely to right now. So at the beginning of the 2015-16 school year, we did another internal research program. We looked at the kids who were using with fidelity, and we also needed students who had taken an assessment in September at the beginning of the school year and who had taken a mid-year assessment around the end of December. So probably less than 4 months of actual instruction time. But if those students were using it with 45 minutes a week fidelity, we saw that they were growing more than 20% more than their peers. Not the 65% that we saw from the national study, but also a much shorter time period. So we feel really confident, again, in telling you if you use the program, your students are going to grow and they're going to do better. Some exciting new research that's just come out. This just is the end of April, we were notified by the National Center on Intensive Intervention that AIReady had gotten near perfect scores in their evaluation. And so when you look at this chart, It's just like when you're looking at consumer reports. Those red circles are an indication that this is a product you can trust, that is reliable. And the way they define it is there's convincing evidence for AIReady in our assessment. And just last week, we were notified that we had won the Kody Award for Best Student Assessment Solution. And again, this idea of this assessment, this deep diagnostic that helps you know where the students are, this is something that no other program in the STEM Action Center grant can provide. No one else has this deep level of information to help connect what's happening in the lab with what needs to happen in the classroom. Our Utah educators are noticing this. Here's a quote from Colleen, who's a principal in Murray. The thing I love about this quote is Colleen specifically talks about how this is changing their entire systems of support. She's not talking about just the time the kids are spending in the lab. She's talking about how they're working with their groups of students. Not just those intervention students, but our students who are our own level, who are ready for challenge materials. Everything. It's completely altered and changed and allowed them to change how they look at their students and how they look at how they're supporting their students and providing that individualization. So to dive a little deeper into AIReady, let's look at kind of how the program is structured, and we're going to get into some of those teacher reports. We've talked about this diagnostic. Everything starts with our assessment. Students take that assessment at the beginning of the year, and it drives what happens. Our assessment is recommended to be delivered 3 times a year, beginning, middle, and end. Based on that assessment, we provide instruction, again, 2 ways. Our online lessons, but then we also provide teacher-directed instruction in forms of our reports and intervention lesson plans. We also provide progress monitoring, 3 different ways that you can progress monitor your students. We have growth monitoring, which is really a mini version of our diagnostic. It's designed to be like a 15 to 20 minute, once a month, quick health check to see how your students are progressing so that we can tell you if they're going to be on grade level by the end of the year. We also monitor all of the lessons and how your students are doing in the lessons. So there's a quiz at the end. And if your students reach a concept which is they're struggling with and they're getting stuck on, we'll send the teacher an alert, lets them know, Susie has failed 4 lessons. It's time, teacher, for you to step in, do some intervention, provide some one-on-one support, and then we can get them back into those animated online lessons so they can learn at their own pace. And then finally, a new exciting piece that we just released, and again, one of the benefits of having an online program is as we release these new features, we can push them out to you. We just launched in the fall of 2015 our Standards Mastery Assessment. This allows you, instead of testing everything and all standards, this allows you to go in and pick specific standards or a specific family of standard and test your students and receive error analysis. So not only does it tell you 30% of your students have mastered this standard, it can come back and on a question by question basis tell you 40% of your students picked answer B, which was the incorrect answer, and they probably picked answer B because they didn't know that they should add the denominators instead of multiply. Okay? So, multiple ways for you to use this program depending on what is a priority for you, your school, or your district. We talk about our adaptive diagnostic. I think everyone knows what we're talking about, but just to be clear, our assessment changes question by question. So every student gets basically a different test based on what they know. Students who are answering questions will continue to get harder and harder questions until they miss them. Then we'll back up. Similarly, if they are struggling and they're missing questions, we'll continue dropping down until they get some questions right. We do that so that we can really identify down to the skill level and across the domain level and not just give you one big score that says Johnny's below level. You already know that. You need to know why they're below level and what can I do next to change and help with that. This adaptive diagnostic averages 45 to 60 minutes. Again, we recommend administering this 3 times per year, and this is not timed. So you don't have to sit down and run your kids through this entire thing in a single hour or a single lab time. You can break this up into multiple chunks. If the fire alarm goes off and they have to sprint out of the building, that's okay. It will remember the question they're on. You can start immediately when you get back at the same question. The reason it's important is, here's a good example. Mary goes to the coffee shop. They offer a pound for $9 or 12 ounces for $7. Which is the better bargain? This is kind of a standard question your kids are seeing on the SAGE, that they're seeing on these national tests. It's a multi-part problem, and there's lots of things going on here. And in order to solve this problem, our kids need to know different things, and they could miss this. These 3 students could miss this for 3 different reasons. They have to understand how many ounces are in a pound. They need to understand, how do I set up these fractions, these inequivalent fractions? What do I need to set up an equation? All kinds of things going on. And so our assessment is going to drill down and come back, and for each one of these students, they're going to be identified at different levels in different domains, which means that they're going to get instruction at those different levels. Here's an example, or just a quick overview of how we separate our domains in AIReady and how we report out. And just so you can see, as we go up again, our assessment is a K-12 assessment. We assess all the standards across K-12, just so you can kind of see how these domain areas line up with the domains that we have identified and how we report information back to you. Okay? Let me show you real quick what some of the assessment questions look like. Again, we've tried to make AIReady as engaging as possible. Your students get to pick a study buddy. We have lots of characters, pages of these characters they can pick from, different background themes so that they can customize their homepage. And from here, they're going to go in and they're going to start seeing these assessment questions. So when we're down at the kindergarten level, very simple, only 3 potential answers. We're going to provide some auditory support for them. We're going to read to them, click on the triangle, they click that. And as they move up through that, you're going to see that it's going to get a little more complicated. So now we're offering 4 potential answers, but we're also reading the number of sentences to them. We provide auditory support up through the end of 5th grade. So we're going to continue moving on through. And again, here's another question where it's kind of a multi-step question. Seems a little straightforward, but they actually have to do a couple of steps in order to get this answer. The other thing that's important is your students throughout this are going to encounter tech-enhanced items. So they are going to see questions that look and feel exactly like what they're doing on the SAGE test. I don't want to tell you this is test prep because that's not what it's designed for, but this is a great chance for them to test those testing skills and to practice those testing skills and to get used to interacting with these tech-enhanced items in a much shorter, easier setting than a 4-hour SAGE test. Okay? As soon as they're done, you're going to get information and your students are going to be placed in an individual study plan. So if we were to look at Jamal, across these various, overall he's a grade 6, but across these domains, he's at different levels. So when his lessons are assigned, he is going to get lessons at all those different domain levels across the board, what he's ready for. And the same would happen if Jamal were above level. If he were at grade 7 or 8, he would get content at level 7 or 8, and we would move him along. So at this point, let's dive in. We're going to go live onto AIReady and take a look at the system again. So let me pull that up here. Now let's see, if I'm lucky it hasn't logged me out. I just want to create a report real quick to show you what this looks like. This is a class profile. We're going to pretend that we just ran our entire class through the assessment and we want to see how they did. This top part just gives us a big picture overall score, how our class averaged in each of the domains. Where it really becomes valuable is when we scroll down and we see performance by student. At this point, I can see how my students have done in each level. So I'm just going to leave this here for just a second. Okay. So as you can see, all of these students have scored differently, right? As I go down and look, I've got my kiddos in red who are not doing very well. They're really behind. I've got quite a few here that are kind of in the middle. They're almost at the level they need to be. So if I were going to look at some of these students and pick one, I'm going to go down and pick Lacey. She's really struggling. So here's Lacey. Overall, this is the Common Core skill band we would hope that she's in. She's a little bit behind here. As a 5th grader, she's scoring at the 3rd grade level. And as I look at her individual domains, I can see why. She's behind in number and operations, algebra, measurements, and data. And the only place she's doing a little bit better in is geometry. Okay? So what we can do at this point is, as a teacher, I've got a little bit better idea now what Lacey needs. And so at this point, I can go up and I can select any of these domains, and it's going to tell me specifically, again, remind me of how she's doing overall in this domain, but then it's going to go down and it's going to start explaining to me, here are the skills that Lacey has shown mastery of. This is what she can do. And then here are the next things that she's ready to work on. So I've got her present level of performance over on the left. Anywhere I click on, this is the Utah icon. If I click on that Utah icon, it brings up the specific Utah core standard that she's shown mastery of. The idea here is, now as a teacher, I know exactly what skills are holding Lacey back, and I can provide interventions. I can go to my core programs, the materials I have in my classroom. I can pull out some things to help reteach these skills. Where we run into problems a lot is when students are 2 or 3 grade levels behind. As a teacher, I may not always have access to the right materials. If I'm a 6th or 7th grade teacher and I have students missing 3rd or 4th grade level skills, I may not have the right stuff to reteach that. We've tried to make that easy for you. If you go down a little bit, we provide these tools for instruction. You can see here I have 11 PDFs available to me to reteach these skills. So if I were to open any of these PDFs, I'm going to be given a short lesson plan, usually 20 to 30 minutes, sometimes less, that helps me reteach the skills. Okay? Fractions on a number line, it tells me what we're going to do, lets me know what materials we might need, and then it's a step-by-step, post this piece of paper. Tell the student what you're doing. Ask them to do this. Ask them to show you this. Tell them to draw a line from here to there. That type of thing. Very, very explicit. Walks you through this. The thing I love about these PDFs, and we get so many compliments from teachers, is that at the end, we provide this kind of quick little formative assessment where if you still see that your student is struggling, they're still placing the number in the wrong place, then it might be because of this, and you should try this. This check for understanding box is awesome. We get so many compliments on that from teachers. They find it very helpful. Okay? So again, this works the same in any of these domains. Even if Lacey were on or above level, all right, she's almost there in geometry, but the same thing happens. Even if she's on or above level, I'm going to have a set of PDFs and some teacher resources that I can use with her to help her with those skills. So even your challenge students who might be above level are going to get some materials. And in this case, a lot of times in math, there'll be a 3rd page on these PDFs where it could be a little worksheet, could be some number lines, some blocks, some number blocks, some shapes, whatever. You can copy these, print these, do whatever you'd like to with them, share them with parents. They're yours to use as you feel fit. So we looked at a class, okay, and now we've looked at Lacey. The other report that teachers just are gaga about is our grouping report. So we take that first classroom report with the green, yellow, and red, and we go and divide that into 5 profiles. So these are your small groups. Students are grouped, small groups. Here they are. These are the students that I have in each group. So again, I can go up and select any of these profiles, even my students who are above level on everything, and it's going to tell me what the instructional priorities are for them next. So I know where these students are ready to go, and it's going to provide me with some support materials for them. Okay? Same thing, any of these profiles, wherever I go, here are my students. It allows me to even resort them. Okay, so I could use these arrows to even do some subsorting within these small groups. Okay, in geometry, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 students who are grade 2, so they are 3 grade levels behind in geometry. I may need to pull Kate, Angela, Derek, Amelia, and Marco aside. I may need to pull them aside and do some special support with them, even within this small group. But it's going to tell me what to work on with these students in geometry. Okay? And at the bottom, it's going to provide some supports for them. Categories of plane figures, attributes of shape. Okay? We're just trying to make your job easy. And the great thing is all of these activities that are listed here, all of these next steps, these missing skills, these are the skills that those students are working on when they go to the lab. So let's look at what that looks like. We already showed you one lesson. When your students go in, if we were to look at Lacey, we're reminded of how she's doing in each of these levels. She's the lowest in measurement and data, so we're going to start there and try to catch her up. And then we're going to go to algebra and algebraic thinking because that's a more foundational skill, and she was lower there. So that's where we're going to start. So you can see Lacey's lesson plan. We assign 20 lessons to every student to start with. And as they go through these lessons, we just keep feeding new lessons into the bottom. They'll always have 20 queued up, and they'll continue to work through this content and spiral through these domains until they're caught up. So I'm going to show you just a couple of lessons. You can go in here if you wanted to. If you were to click on any of these lessons, you could go in and see the specific course standard that we're talking about in any of these. You can go in and see how the lessons are leveled out, where they are in the placement, all of that stuff. We give teachers quite a bit of flexibility in manipulating these lessons. We generally tell you trust the system. The student was placed there for a reason, but every once in a while there's an outlier and you may need to go in and make some manual adjustments, and the system allows you to do that. It also allows you to make assignments for your entire class. So you could go through and look at this list of lessons and you could say, you know what, we are getting ready to be talking about finding multiples. I'm going to assign this lesson, finding multiples. Oh yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. I'm going to assign that to my entire class. You could assign that to your entire class and use AIReady as more of a grade level support. And then when the students work on their own, they can also be working on those individual needs to fill in those gaps. Okay, so let's jump back out. I'm going to just show you another lesson. So it's asking me if I'm still here. I started this earlier. We're going to start this just so you can kind of see what's going on. I'm going to skip this intro part.
Secret weapon, eh?
Just found this app that might help your roaring hamsters and athletes discover how to add and subtract fractions.
Score! We gotta help them see that fractions work just like whole numbers. Take addition, for example. Adding means joining together. So just like adding whole numbers, when we add fractions, we join the parts together.
Beautiful! This app does just that. Check it out.
Okay, so I'm asked to interact with the lesson.
Let's start with adding unit fractions. How about 1/3 plus 1/3?
Well, since you're adding thirds, you divide each whole into 3 equal parts.
This app automatically gives you fraction tiles based on how you divide the number line. And you can drag the fraction tiles above the number line to create the model. Create a model for 1/3 plus 1/3.
Drag a tile to show the first addend. Then click the addition button.
Okay, so it's asking me to put some tiles on here. Okay.
Oops, that's too many tiles. We only need one. Drag another tile to show the next add end. Then click the Done button.
Okay.
Great! Now we can use the model to find the sum.
Okay. So you'll notice as the students go through the lessons, they are asked to engage in the lesson. It's not a video that they sit and watch and then they take a test at the end of the video. They have to engage here. And we're going to give them opportunities to practice as they go through the lesson. And they're going to get immediate feedback during that practice. Again, I didn't get that correct. He gave me immediate feedback. He helped me know what I needed to do, gave me another chance at it. Going to continue right on through. And you're going to see that students are shown lots of different models. So let me jump back and show you this lesson.
I used to tour around the world with my band. I was living...
Let's see what's going on with this group here.
Box it like it's hot. We've got to start packing these muffins if we're going to keep up with all these orders.
Roger that, boss. But I've got 3 different shipping cartons, and I need to figure out how many of these muffin boxes I can pack into each one.
Okay, next.
Let's start with this small shipping carton. How many muffin boxes can we pack inside? Click the muffin box to start packing.
Okay, so again, here's an interactive tech enhanced type item. Okay, I got to click on it. I've got to get going. How many boxes?
How many
do we
muffin
have?
boxes fill the small carton?
Not very good here. I'm going to get this wrong.
Check it out. 6 muffin boxes fit perfectly into this carton. There are 3 in the front row and 3 in the back row.
Got it. So it helped me with that. And you'll notice it also introduced this concept of rows. Okay, and it's going to introduce columns, rows and columns. So it showed me visually there are 3 in the front row, there are 3 in the back row. And as we go through this lesson, it's going to continue this explicit instruction, introducing vocabulary and giving the students a chance to practice and get immediate feedback. So that's how all the lessons are structured. Let's jump back here. I just want to show you a couple of things as we wrap up. So again, the idea with AIReady is that it's more than something to sit in your lab, and all of this data that we're collecting is only collected to drive instruction. That's the only reason we should be testing our kids, is to drive instruction and how we can support that. To show you real quick a little bit about the growth monitoring, again, this is one of the ways you can monitor your students kind of ongoing in between those bigger assessments. These short monthly progress monitoring tests basically help you get a projection on where your students are going to end up at the end of the year. The idea with this report is it's high level overall health check. Are we making growth, and are we making enough growth to get us where we need to be at the end of the year? If we're not, we need to kind of change what we're doing. We need to change the intensity or the frequency of our interventions to make a change. We may have students who are making great growth, but because they started so far behind, they've got to make extreme growth to get caught up. And that's what we're trying to do, is get kids back up on grade level. Also, I just want to talk to you a little bit about the standards mastery. Again, that was that new feature that I mentioned. Available right now for grades 2 through 8 in reading and math. These are pre-packaged assessments. There are 2 assessments per standard. Each assessment is going to have 6 to 10 items, and it's going to take your kids about 15 minutes per assessment. So again, you can test a single standard, or you can test multiple standards. If you combine multiple standards, be aware that each of those standards is going to be about 15 minutes. So you don't want to package 4 or 5 together, because now you've just assigned your students another hour-long test. The idea with this is, again, that your students are going to see items. Again, this is a great example. We're giving them an expression, and we're not asking them to find the right answer. We're telling them choose all the answers that are correct, right? So that mirrors exactly what they're seeing on Sage. Okay, pick all the answers that are correct. And the item analysis is where it's so helpful, because as administrators and teachers, you're going to be able to understand why your students missed, not just that they missed. Okay, and you'll be able to get class, student, school, and district level views on how you're doing down to the student level, or as you roll up, you're going to see it across the district. And the other great thing is this resources button takes you to the same types of resources that I just showed you in those teacher reports. So when we tell you that your students missed this standard, that they're not proficient on this standard, we're going to give you resources that help reteach the concepts and skills needed for that standard. Again, tying this data back to instruction. Okay? And finally, I'm just going to wrap up with who's here to support you. So I apologize for the ugly mug. This is me. Joel Kongaika is our local education consultant here. Joel and I both live in Utah. We're kind of the sales arm of the team. The other important pieces that work with you at the district in terms of working with assessment, curriculum, technology are two. Number one, Corey Fitzgerald. Corey is our account manager. Corey is the guy who works with your IT team to integrate with your SIS to help you upload your student and teacher rosters and to basically make sure everything runs on the back end the way it should. Corey is dedicated to Utah, and he's been working with us here in Utah for the last 3 years on these state-funded programs. So he's very familiar with all the reporting requirements and all the particulars of how things have to be done here. On the professional development side, we have Tracy Carr, who's the manager, and Allison Miller, who is our Utah trainer based here in Utah, who are going to work with you to come up with a custom PD plan. So we have several sessions. Here are a few. Generally speaking, for new customers to AIReady, you're going to start with a getting started session. It's about a 2-hour session before school starts to get you familiar with the assessment. Once you run your students through the assessment and they've had a few weeks to do the online lessons, we like to come back and do this understanding data session. This is where we dive in deeply to the reports that I was just showing you, and we work with your teachers. We can work with them in grade level settings to analyze what you're seeing, talk about what you're seeing. Hey, I'm second grade, you're second grade. Did your students all struggle with geometry? Yeah, mine did. Okay, let's look at some of those skills that they're missing and figure out how we can reteach that differently. We dive into that data in this second session to really help you understand how to apply what you're seeing in those reports and to customize the instruction for your students. And then we have sessions for leadership where we, again, kind of do the same thing at a school level or even a district level to really look at the reports and say, hey, what are we seeing? We're also working with all of our schools across the state. We have a Strive for 45 pack that really tries to emphasize and help you remember 45 minutes a week is what we're going for. So posters with test-taking tips. You can track student progress. We do pizza parties and kind of contests for schools. And we have stickers and certificates and achievement awards that you can provide for your students. Finally, this year we're going to be launching the Utah AIReady User Summit. This is going to be our inaugural year. We have thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of students using AIReady across Utah right now. So we have hundreds, if not thousands, of educators all across the state who are using the program. We're going to be pulling them together so that we can really take advantage of all of the synergies and the great knowledge of how to use the program out there. We're going to bring in some national level keynote speakers and make this a fun learning event for everyone. So I want to thank you for taking time to listen to this. Here's Joel and my information. Please reach out to us if you would like for us to come and do a similar type demo or a custom demo for your school or your district. Please reach out to either of us. We're both based here in Utah, and we would be happy to come and answer questions for you. Thank you so much and have a great day.